Hi. So I'm here with a money saving tip for y'all that I do all the time, at least on a weekly basis, depending on what life is looking like. But I make breakfast and coffee for my sister-in-law, Jamie, who drops her dog off with me almost every day for doggy daycare. And because I love her, I want to make sure that she starts her day off with a nice coffee and with a nice meal. So, if you know Jamie, Jamie only drinks iced coffee. It doesn't matter if it's 25 degrees outside, it's going to be a cold coffee. So, what I started to do instead of buying bottles of cold brew or bottles of pre brewed coffee, I started making it at home. And this is really cost effective. It's ridiculously easy and it's a super big time saver because you don't have to worry about going to the store and then worrying about how long is the coffee going to be good for and all of that. So I'm going to show you how to do it. Again, really freaking easy. You only need a couple of materials. You can use pre-ground coffee or you can grind your own at home, which is what I do. You get to specify the flavor preference that you like of your coffee beans themselves, and then you can adjust the strength of the coffee as well, depending on how strong you do or do not like it. So I'm going to show you what I use. One second. Okay, so all I use, you don't have to do this. You could do this just in a mason jar. You could do this with a measuring cup and a coffee filter. It doesn't really matter. But I use this very large, oversized French press that I got at HEB for like $15 or $19 or something like that. I use my cheap $10 Krups coffee grinder and then whatever coffee beans I grab. Y'all are going to get tired of me talking about Aldi, but if you're not shopping there, you're gonna have to get on board because they're just go, okay? I know people are wary because the prices are low, but the food is so good and so is the quality. So this is my current favorite coffee from Aldi. It's really a little bit smoky, it's got a little bit of chocolate undertones, and it holds up really well. So what you're going to do, you can do this with a kitchen scale or you can just eyeball it. I usually fill up my coffee grinder with about 3/4, maybe half a cup of coffee beans and grind them fairly fine. You don't want them espresso ground size, but a little bit finer than what you would put in a coffee machine itself. And then what you're going to do is you're going to add those grinds into the bottom of your French press or your measuring cup or whatever it is that you're using. And then you're going to fill this up with filtered water as much as you can. And you're going to let this sit overnight or 8 hours or whatever. The longer you let it sit, the more potent it's going to be. So it is 1 o'clock right now. I'm going to let this sit until time for bed tonight. So about 10 o'clock, 9 hours. And then I'll strain it and I'll put it in the fridge so that it's ready to use tomorrow. And then what I do when I want to strain it is either in a separate container or whatever the case is, I will grab a mesh strainer. Again, you don't have to do this. You could do this with just a filter, a coffee filter. You could do this with cheesecloth. You could do this with a rubber band and a mason jar and a paper towel. It really doesn't matter. But what I'll do is I'll take out a mesh strainer. I will put either some paper towels or a coffee filter in here. I might poke a couple holes in the bottom just to speed up the process because as the fine coffee grounds kind of sink to the bottom, it's going to limit the amount of coffee that's able to filter through. And after that 10 hours, I'll just filter this out and I'll pour this into a mason jar. It keeps in the fridge for 3 to 4 weeks, but it never lasts that long. And then I usually dilute it a little bit because it's pretty strong. If you've never had just straight cold brew, it's pretty strong. So I usually add about another 4 to 6 ounces of cold water before I stick it in the fridge. But yeah, that's it. So I'll show y'all what it looks like when I mix it all up, and then I'll show you the finished product tomorrow. Okay, so we're going to start with a clean coffee grinder. Don't be like me and then forget to clean it until you actually have to go and use it. But I just use a dry paper towel to clean that out. You're going to fill up a pretty heavy amount of coffee beans. This is probably 3 ounces, a little more than half a cup of coffee beans, and then you're going to grind it up. So just pulse until you get that somewhat fine consistency. I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, sorry, noisy. So here's what that looks like. So it's not espresso consistency. It's not like powder fine, but it's also not ground like for your old school percolator machines. So you're kind of somewhere in between. The finer you make this, the stronger your coffee will be, but also realize that it means that you might have more sediment or sludge in the final product itself, because the finer it is, the more likely it is that the sediment is going to filter through your sieve or your coffee filter or whatever it is that you're using. So all you're going to do is dump those grounds right into whatever your end vessel is. And then what we're going to do, we're going to fill this up with cold water as high as we can go. Oh, this smells amazing. I love this coffee. Go to Aldi if you're not there. I'm telling you, it'll change your life and your budget. Okay. So I filled this up almost to the rim because we need a little room to put the cap on. And then I just take an old chopstick, or you can use a spoon or whatever. If you're using a glass French press, you want to use either plastic or wood in here. You don't want to use metal because then you could risk breaking the glass itself. But all we're going to do, we're going to just stir it up. How simple was that, right? I'm going to stir it up. I'm going to pop a lid on to keep any, whatever from our kitchen, any stray remnants of anything that's floating around in there. And I'm just going to set this off to the side until I'm ready to pour it out tonight. And that's it. So what I'll do, I'll show you. What I'll do is I'll take my measuring cup or whatever you've got and my sieve. Again, you don't have to have this. It just makes it easier for me because I like to dump it and go. I'll line it. I'll poke a couple holes in the bottom with a toothpick, and then I'll strain it down and then just pour all of that right into my mason jar and keep this in the fridge. You can reuse the coffee grounds one more time, especially if you're looking for something a little bit diluted. So you can fill these grounds again one more time. It won't be quite as strong, and you can mix it with your pre-made coffee that you already did. And that way you have more results from that. And it's diluted down a little bit and you get the same flavor profile and everything, and you're not wasting as much. And then your coffee grounds, you can put them in the garden. You can put them in your trash can for odor control. You can put them in some cheesecloth and keep it in your closet after drying them out. Sometimes I'll dry it out and I'll use it as like a face scrub or a body scrub, but make sure you do it outside. The most important thing is you do not want to put the coffee grounds down your drain, because it could eventually lead to a clog in the drain itself. So no coffee grounds down the drain. If you don't want to reuse them, just make sure when you're scooping them out that you put them in the trash or some other, like a compost bin or something, but do not put this down your drain because it will cause plumbing issues down the road. Especially if you're going to use it as a body scrub. If you're going to scrub, make sure that you're scrubbing outside and then brushing off the remnants with a dry or a wet towel before rinsing off in the bath or the shower. So there you go. So this probably cost, this coffee costs about $7 a bag, and I make coffee about every 2 to 3 weeks. I get 5 to 6 batches out of this. So I would say that is quite a bit better than the $8 bottle of iced coffee that I've been buying previously. There you have it. Take care.